The mind architect. Dr. Elena Rodriguez was known among her peers as the physicist who studied consciousness itself. But privately, she was chasing something far more dangerous, an idea that could rewrite the laws of physics. She believed human awareness didn't just observe the universe, it built it. On March 15, 2019, she walked into her CERN laboratory and vanished from a room locked from the inside. No body, no exit, no trace. Only fragments of equations left glowing on her monitor. Equations hinting that reality is not a fixed structure, but something the mind actively generates. Rodriguez had spent 8 relentless years developing what she called observer theory. It pushed beyond the familiar quantum observer effect. Her math suggested that consciousness doesn't simply collapse a wave function. It constructs the very fabric of space-time, matter, and energy each time we look at the world. Her breakthrough came when she reanalyzed quantum measurement logs in a way no one else dared to. Hidden in the noise, she noticed something impossible. The universe's supposedly fixed constants, like the speed of light and the strength of gravity, shifted ever so slightly depending on the person taking the measurement and what they expected to find. The variations were microscopic, but across millions of data points, the trend refused to disappear. If she was right, then objective reality wasn't objective at all. It was a collective projection, shaped by our beliefs about how the universe is supposed to behave. After her disappearance, a colleague quietly leaked her unfinished papers. In them, Rodriguez documented something even more unbelievable. Groups of scientists running the same experiment produced different results that matched their expectations, not universal physical laws. It was as if shared belief could warp local physics. Her final test, the one she ran the night before she vanished, involved sealing off quantum systems from all conscious observation. According to her last written notes, particles left completely unobserved didn't hover in superposition. They simply stopped existing. Reality waited for a witness. CERN officials claimed she took an unexpected leave of absence. But the security logs tell a different story. She entered Laboratory 7 on March 14th. Her keycard never unlocked an exit. And within hours of her vanishing, every file connected to her research was wiped from CERN's servers. Whatever Dr. Rodriguez discovered, it suggested a universe far more flexible and far more fragile than anyone imagined. If consciousness truly shapes existence, then every mind is a creator and every belief a blueprint for reality. But if that's true, what happens when a scientist uncovers proof that reality itself can be rewritten? The age reverser. Dr. Sarah Chun was on the brink of announcing a discovery that would overturn everything we believe about life, death, and the human body. She had found the genetic master key to aging, and just 24 hours before she revealed it to the world, she vanished from her Harvard lab without a trace. For years, scientists focused on telomeres, the tiny caps at the ends of chromosomes that shrink as we grow older. But Chun went further, much further. Buried deep in human DNA, she found an entire regulatory system, an aging master switch that controlled how and when our cells deteriorate. Her experiments on lab mice were nothing short of impossible. Elderly mice, the biological equivalent of 80-year-old humans, were treated with her gene therapy. Within 6 weeks, they didn't just heal, they became young again. Their organs, muscles, and cells looked identical to those of mice in their prime. Chun believed aging wasn't a slow collapse. It was a programmed process, intentionally switched on, and therefore, it could be switched off. By reactivating dormant genetic instructions that once fueled rapid growth and repair in youth, she restored the body's ability to regenerate endlessly. Human trials, conducted in secret, produced results so dramatic they bordered on science fiction. Volunteers in their 70s saw their cellular age drop to that of people in their mid-20s. Organs strengthened, vision sharpened, muscles regenerated. The biological clock didn't just stop, it turned backward. Chun documented everything in her final handwritten lab notes. Notes a colleague saved moments before government agents seized her lab. Her therapy, she explained, reprogrammed every treated cell into a perpetual state of youth, restoring the unlimited potential our bodies lose after childhood. But the night before her global announcement, Chen sent an encrypted message to her partner. It was brief, urgent, and filled with fear. She said she'd received unofficial warnings not to disclose her findings. Security footage captured her entering the lab that evening. No footage ever showed her leaving. Harvard later claimed she resigned to pursue private work, yet her lab was sealed immediately, and every piece of her research was removed by unidentified federal teams. Her discovery, a treatment that could have made aging optional, disappeared the same night she did. And the question that haunts her colleagues remains: who wanted to stop humanity from becoming biologically immortal? The mind hacker. Dr. Marcus Webb wasn't just a neuroscientist. He was the man who figured out how to unlock the human mind. And what he uncovered was powerful enough to terrify governments and cripple trillion-dollar industries. His research showed that consciousness could be amplified, artificially pushed into superhuman territory using precise electromagnetic frequencies. According to Webb, you could take an ordinary brain and tune it like a radio. On November 12, 2018, just days before releasing his findings, he stepped into his Stanford laboratory and vanished without a trace. Webb's journey began with a mystery: savants. People who, after a brain injury or illness, suddenly developed impossible talents: photographic memory, instant calculation, perfect pitch. Most researchers blamed damaged neurons. Webb found the opposite. These abilities emerged when brain waves synchronized in patterns the average human never experiences. If those patterns could be recreated, he realized, those abilities could be recreated too. Using ultra-precise electromagnetic pulses, Webb learned to induce these rare brain states in volunteers. The results were immediate and terrifyingly effective. Ordinary people developed flawless recall. Others solved complex equations in seconds. And some began sensing thoughts, emotions, internal states of the people around them with unsettling accuracy. Webb then mapped the exact frequencies that produced each mental upgrade. He discovered consciousness wasn't some abstract force. It operated on measurable wavelengths. By tuning those frequencies, he pushed cognition far beyond human norms. Test subjects scored triple their original IQ. They formed neural connections the brain normally keeps isolated. Scans showed a supernetwork, regions communicating simultaneously, creating something close to a superbrain. And that was the problem. Enhanced humans, Webb warned, couldn't be lied to, couldn't be controlled. They would see through manipulation instantly. And if telepathic communication was possible, secrets would become impossible. His final notes, rescued briefly before they were seized, detailed something even more explosive. Webb believed the enhancement frequencies could be broadcast to entire cities, even whole nations. Cell towers, radio networks, satellites, any of them could raise human consciousness on a massive scale. 2 days before publication, pharmaceutical representatives appeared in his office with enormous offers to purchase his research. Webb refused. Hours later, federal agents arrived with national security orders to seize his equipment. That night, he disappeared. No exit logs. No witnesses. Stanford claimed he left to pursue private ventures. But his lab was emptied, stripped down to concrete. Every device he built, destroyed. Every file deleted. And the technology that could have evolved humanity's mind vanished with the scientist who dared to unlock it. But one question lingers. If human consciousness can be upgraded, who benefits most from keeping us ordinary? The gravity breaker. Dr. Yuki Tanaka was on the verge of unveiling a discovery that would have rewritten the blueprint of modern civilization. She had found a way to bend gravity itself, reduce it, redirect it, even reverse it. And just weeks before presenting her breakthrough, she vanished from her Tokyo University laboratory on January 8, 2021. Tanaka's work stemmed from an idea far more radical than Einstein ever proposed, that gravity and electromagnetism might be deeply intertwined. Using highly tuned electromagnetic fields, she discovered specific configurations that could distort gravity in controlled, predictable ways. The demonstrations stunned everyone who witnessed them. Objects floated weightlessly above her experimental platform. In certain zones, gravity didn't pull downward, it pulled up. And in one test, she created a small, artificial gravitational field that attracted objects toward it regardless of their mass, as if she had manufactured her own pocket universe inside the lab. Tanaka explained it in terms of gravitational field lines, invisible structures woven through space-time that determine how mass curves reality around itself. Her custom-built electromagnetic generators could grip those field lines like threads and twist them into new shapes. With the right configuration, she could sculpt gravity as easily as an artist molds clay. Independent physicists brought in to verify her results left the lab pale and speechless. Precision instruments recorded sudden drops in weight. Nearby accelerometers detected fluctuations in gravitational strength that defied general relativity. No known physics could explain what they observed, except hers. The impact of her work, if released, would have been world-shattering. Space travel without rockets. Unlimited clean energy drawn from gravitational potential. Buildings, ships, aircraft, anything, lifted effortlessly by engineered gravity. The entire global infrastructure would have been transformed overnight. A graduate student managed to smuggle out fragments of her research before authorities sealed the lab. Those notes revealed Tanaka's long-term vision. Gravity engines powerful enough to lift skyscrapers, spacecraft that accelerated without fuel, and artificial gravity chambers built for future colonies on the Moon and Mars. But 3 days before her presentation to the International Physics Consortium, a group of officials claiming to represent international energy interests arrived unannounced. Security cameras captured them entering her lab. Then the feed went dark for several hours. When the cameras came back, Tanaka was gone. Her equipment had been dismantled. Her prototypes destroyed. Tokyo University later insisted she accepted a classified government position. But no such program appears anywhere in official records. And that leaves one chilling question. If someone seized her anti-gravity technology, where is it being used now? The brain interceptor. Dr. Robert Hayes wasn't hunting for the paranormal. He was proving it wasn't paranormal at all. He discovered that telepathy, the stuff of myth and science fiction, was actually a dormant human ability. And he found the switch that turns it on. Working out of Johns Hopkins, Hayes showed that the brain is constantly broadcasting faint electromagnetic signals, signals coded with thoughts, emotions, even memories. Normally, they're too weak for another brain to detect. But with his amplification technology, everything changed. On May 22, 2019, just hours before publishing results that would have shaken neuroscience to its core, Dr. Hayes disappeared without a trace. His experiments were elegant and unsettling. 2 volunteers, placed in separate shielded rooms with no physical connection, became linked. When one subject saw an image or heard a sound, Hayes's amplifier boosted their neural signals and transmitted them to the second subject. The second person didn't imagine the experience, they felt it. They saw what the first subject saw, heard what they heard, even absorbed their emotions with uncanny clarity. Then the experiments escalated. Subjects began transmitting memories, full sensory recollections, into another person's mind. The recipients described the experience as if the memories were their own. Hayes had created a direct neural bridge between 2 human consciousnesses. His breakthrough came when he mapped the brain's internal communication network. Thoughts operated on one set of frequencies, emotions on another, sensory data on a third. By isolating these frequencies and amplifying them, he created controlled, two-way telepathic communication. The technology didn't just send thoughts, it could read them. Hayes's system decoded the electromagnetic chatter produced by neural activity, revealing internal dialogue, emotional states, and sensory imagery. It was, essentially, a window into the human mind. And that was when government agencies took interest. Telepathic decoding would transform espionage, interrogation, and intelligence gathering. No lies, no secrets, no privacy. Hayes's final notes, retrieved briefly before they vanished, outlined portable versions of his device, small enough to hide in smartphones, powerful enough to read thoughts from a distance. He knew exactly how dangerous this was. The night before publication, Hayes told colleagues he was reconsidering releasing the technology. He worried it would become a tool of surveillance, manipulation, maybe even mind control. He left his lab on May 21st, looking calm on the security cameras as he walked out of the building. He never made it home. He was never seen again. Within a day, every file connected to his research was quietly erased from university servers, and the world was left to wonder. If telepathy can be engineered, who is using it now? The Time Architect, Dr. Lisa Morrison, had been on the edge of proving something humanity wasn't prepared to understand. A physicist at MIT, she had built a working theory of time travel, not through machines or wormholes, but through consciousness itself. Her research suggested that the human mind could project information backward in time, altering past events in ways that defied every known law of physics. On August 14, 2020, just days before presenting her findings, she vanished from her laboratory without a trace. Her breakthrough came from the quantum eraser experiments, which demonstrated a disturbing truth: future actions could retroactively change past quantum states. Morrison realized that if particles could be influenced backward through time, then larger systems, possibly even human consciousness, might follow the same rules under the right conditions. She called it temporal resonance, a field created by manipulating entangled particles and electromagnetic frequencies to form a bridge between present and past versions of the mind. Witnesses saw things that should have been impossible. Random number generators behaved as if they were reacting to her thoughts from the future. Digital logs rewrote themselves to match outcomes she hadn't yet acted on. It was as if reality itself was being edited from the inside, silently reshaping its past to align with her intentions. If she was right, history was no longer fixed. It was malleable, vulnerable, and open to manipulation. Her notes described terrifying applications. Diseases could be prevented before they formed. Catastrophes could be erased before they unfolded. Entire wars could be avoided by nudging the thoughts of leaders decades earlier. Humanity could, in theory, rewrite its own timeline. But the same power could destroy evidence, reshape politics, or create worlds where freedom never existed. Morrison pushed further, claiming she had sent information back to her younger self: warnings, instructions, predictions. Her notebooks contained future stock trends, election outcomes, and geopolitical shifts written months before they occurred. She insisted she had spoken with versions of herself from decades ahead, and they all carried the same message. Governments would weaponize her discovery. They would rewrite history to serve their interests. The night before her scheduled presentation to military officials, she confided in colleagues that she feared she had already changed something she shouldn't have. The next morning, her lab was stripped bare. Every device, every note, every trace of her temporal resonance apparatus was gone. Security footage showed unknown personnel clearing the room in the middle of the night. MIT publicly claimed she had transferred to a classified program, but off the record, no one could confirm where she went, or if she ever left at all. Her timeline-altering research disappeared the same night she did, leaving behind only one haunting question: did she vanish, or did she erase herself from her own past? The Gene Hacker. Dr. Kevin Park was days away from unveiling a discovery that would have redefined what it means to be human. A geneticist at the University of California, he claimed to have decoded the non-coding regions of human DNA, the 98% long dismissed as evolutionary leftovers. But Park found something hidden inside those so-called empty sequences: a complex, programmable language that controlled intelligence, behavior, perception, and abilities science didn't even believe were real. On October 5, 2019, just before publishing his findings, he disappeared without a trace. His breakthrough began when he noticed patterns in non-coding DNA that looked far too organized to be random. They behaved less like biological noise and more like lines of software, structured, layered, and purposeful. Using advanced pattern recognition algorithms, Park translated these sequences into what he called genetic programs, a built-in system that governed cognitive and emotional potential, and possibly even abilities that bordered on the paranormal. Then came the moment that changed everything. Park realized this genetic software could be rewritten. Using experimental gene therapy techniques, he modified the non-coding DNA of volunteer participants. The results were immediate and staggering. Subjects showed IQ jumps of 40 to 60 points, developed near-perfect memory, and could process complex patterns with a speed and accuracy that no unmodified human could match. Brain scans revealed new neural pathways forming within days, as if their minds were rebuilding themselves into a more advanced version of the human brain. Some abilities were even stranger. Enhanced subjects reported sensing electromagnetic fields. Others predicted random outcomes with unnerving accuracy. A few could influence electronic devices without touching them, as though their nervous systems were interfacing directly with technology. Park had unlocked dormant abilities that standard biology insisted were impossible. The implications were world-changing. If genetic limits were nothing more than locked software, then humanity could upgrade itself, stronger, smarter, healthier, even superhuman. Park's notes outlined protocols that could be distributed like vaccines, raising global intelligence and eliminating many forms of disease. But the same technology could also divide humanity forever, creating an elite class of genetically enhanced individuals far superior to everyone else. Governments and private industries noticed immediately. Military officials saw the potential for soldiers with heightened reflexes, perfect memory, and resistance to psychological manipulation. Intelligence agencies feared citizens who couldn't be deceived. Pharmaceutical giants wanted exclusive control of enhancement therapies that would be worth billions. Park wrote in his final entries that he was being pressured from all sides: military contractors, biotech corporations, and security agencies, all demanding ownership of his research. On the night of October 4th, security cameras captured Park working alone in his lab. No footage showed him leaving. By morning, every file, backup, and experimental record tied to his work had been erased from university servers. Officials claimed he left for a private biotech firm, but no such company ever confirmed hiring him, and he never contacted friends or family again. Dr. Kevin Park's research promised a future where human limitations could be erased like lines of code. But the man who discovered how to unlock humanity's hidden potential vanished before the world could learn what he found, or who took him. The gate opener. Dr. Ahmed Hassan had done what most physicists only theorized about. He opened a doorway to another version of Earth. A researcher at Cambridge University, he had spent years studying the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, the idea that every decision, every measurement, every moment creates a new branch of reality. By late 2020, he had built technology capable of detecting those branches and then stepping into them. On December 19th, one day after beginning tests on a human-sized dimensional gateway, he vanished without a trace. Within hours, every piece of his research was classified worldwide. His breakthrough came from what he called dimensional resonance technology, a system capable of manipulating the quantum measurement process itself. The earliest experiments produced microscopic windows, tiny shimmering apertures that revealed alternate versions of his own lab, where different outcomes had occurred. A pin dropped in one reality landed upright in another. A computer file he deleted in this world still existed on the screen of its parallel counterpart. It was the first direct, visual proof that parallel dimensions truly existed. Hassan refined the technology until the gateways grew large enough to pass small objects through. Soon, he was retrieving samples from other Earths, metals with unknown atomic structures, fragments of documents describing historical events that never happened here, and materials that violated known physics entirely. Even stranger, Hassan began receiving messages, handwritten notes, data logs, and even video from alternate versions of himself conducting the same research in parallel worlds. Together, they formed a cross-dimensional research team, sharing discoveries across realities. But the more he explored, the darker the revelations became. Some Earths were devastated wastelands, worlds destroyed by nuclear war, pandemics, runaway AI, or climate collapse. Entire continents were uninhabitable. Others revealed civilizations far more advanced than ours. He retrieved technologies that cured disease, generated unlimited clean energy, and enhanced human cognition beyond anything possible in our timeline. The multiverse was a library of both humanity's greatest triumphs and its most catastrophic failures. The implications were unimaginable. Access to parallel Earths meant access to infinite knowledge, infinite resources, and infinite variations of humanity. A world seeking cures for disease could simply borrow them from a version of Earth that had already found the answer. Governments quickly realized the advantage this offered. An intelligence agency could study alternate versions of rival nations. A military could steal weapons designed in a universe centuries ahead in technology. In his final notes, Hassan described plans for a permanent gateway, one large enough for human travel between realities. He had identified dimensions where humanity achieved world peace, ended poverty, and even developed faster than light travel. He believed that by connecting these worlds, humanity could accelerate its progress by centuries. On the night of December 18th, security footage captured unusual electromagnetic disturbances inside his lab. The dimensional gateway glowed with a brightness the equipment had never produced before. A sudden flash filled the room, blinding the cameras for several seconds. When the image returned, the gateway was destroyed, the equipment was melted, and Dr. Hassan was gone. Cambridge University claimed he left for a classified government project, but the lab itself told a different story. The damage looked deliberate, controlled demolition meant to erase every trace of his work. No notes, no blueprints, no device. The scientist who proved that infinite worlds exist vanished into one of them, or was taken before anyone else could follow. The Soul Linker. Dr. Maria Santos had done the unthinkable. She proved that human consciousness doesn't end with the body. A neuroscientist at Stanford University, she developed the first technology capable of detecting and communicating with consciousness after clinical death. On July 31, 2021, just days before presenting her findings to the global scientific community, she vanished from her lab. Within hours, all her research was classified and erased from public access. Her breakthrough began with advanced monitoring of near-death experiences. Santos discovered that consciousness wasn't generated by the brain at all. It merely used the brain the way a signal uses a radio receiver. When the brain shut down, the signal didn't disappear. It kept broadcasting. Patients in cardiac arrest showed patterns of organized electromagnetic activity long after brain function flatlined. The mind, she realized, wasn't confined to biological tissue. It existed independently. Using specialized detection arrays, Santos could record these post-death consciousness signatures, structured, intelligent patterns radiating from bodies that were clinically dead. And then, she did the impossible. She made contact. By sending modulated electromagnetic signals, she could transmit simple messages to these consciousness entities and receive coherent replies. The responses carried memories, personality, emotion, everything that made the person who they were in life. The implications were earth-shattering. If consciousness survived death, then human existence didn't end, it transformed. Death wasn't a wall. It was a doorway. Her later experiments pushed the boundary even further. Santos held extended conversations with the deceased, who described existing in non-physical dimensional spaces where thought shaped reality instantly and movement was unrestricted. They claimed that consciousness could travel across vast distances with no physical limitations, and that perception expanded beyond anything the human senses could imagine. Government agencies and religious institutions reacted immediately. A world with proof of life after death would rewrite society from the ground up. Fear would lose its power. Belief systems would shift. Entire industries built around mortality would collapse. And control, political, social, and psychological, would slip through the fingers of those who relied on humanity's fear of the unknown. Santos planned to unveil a device capable of regular communication between the living and the dead, a technology that would allow families to speak to lost loved ones and scientists to access the accumulated knowledge of every brilliant mind in history. Her lab contained recordings of conversations with deceased researchers who described new technologies, theories, and information impossible to obtain by any living scientist. The night before her presentation, Santos worked late alone. Security footage shows her adjusting her consciousness interface equipment, and then the cameras cut out. When they resumed, she was gone. Her devices were dismantled. Unidentified personnel removed every component, claiming national security authority. Stanford University insisted she simply took a sabbatical. But her lab told a different story, one of a discovery too powerful, too disruptive, too world-changing to ever see the light of day. And the scientist who proved that death isn't the end disappeared as mysteriously as the line between life and what lies beyond. The reality coder. Dr. James Wright had uncovered the most unsettling truth in scientific history, that physical reality is software running on a cosmic-scale computational system. And he had begun learning how to edit the code. On February 14, 2022, just as he prepared to reveal his findings to select officials, he vanished from his MIT laboratory, and every trace of his research was erased as if reality itself had been rewritten around him. His discovery began by fusing quantum mechanics with computational theory. Wright noticed that particles behaved exactly like data packets being processed by an underlying program. Superposition acted like parallel calculations. Wave function collapse resembled executed commands. The deeper he analyzed the quantum world, the more it resembled adaptive software rather than physical matter. Then Wright created quantum systems capable of accessing what he called the reality source code, the informational layer that defines fundamental laws. Through controlled quantum manipulation, he began altering physics inside his lab. Colleagues witnessed light bending at impossible angles, objects falling at inconsistent gravitational speeds, and atomic structures behaving as if their programming had been rewritten on the fly. The rules of the universe were no longer fixed, they were editable. His most dangerous discovery came next. Consciousness itself appeared to have administrative privileges in the universal system. Wright developed a quantum consciousness interface that allowed human intention to modify localized physics. Operators connected to his machine could alter reality simply by thinking specific patterns, like editing cosmic software with the mind as the keyboard. Gravity, time, energy, matter, everything could be reshaped by will. For governments, this was beyond revolutionary. Any nation with access to reality programming could nullify weapons, destabilize enemy territory, or even erase threats by altering the physical laws around them. It was absolute power, beyond technology, beyond warfare, beyond ethics. Wright knew this. His final notes revealed hesitation, even fear. He believed releasing the technology might destabilize civilization by giving humans the ability to override existence itself. But it was too late. Interest from military agencies surged. Pressure mounted, and Wright became increasingly uneasy. The night before presenting his latest system to Pentagon officials, the security cameras in his lab began glitching. Footage warped as if the fabric of space inside the room was being edited. Electromagnetic interference scrambled every recording device for hours. When the systems finally stabilized, Wright was gone, and his entire laboratory had been sanitized to the point that it looked as if the equipment had never existed at all. MIT claimed he was recruited into classified government research. But his disappearance marked the abrupt end of all public study into the programmable nature of reality. His work didn't just hint at a simulated universe, it demonstrated how to change it. If you want to uncover more hidden truths and mysterious disappearances, subscribe to Strange Wise and join us on the journey beyond the limits of human knowledge. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a story that challenges everything you thought you knew about reality.